What's the hidden story of coffee as we know it now that you as a roaster are seeing?
Life on a farm in a coffee estate is very, very different from life for us. So
Right.
if we can get the understanding of that, then we understand that the coffee that we drink is so much more precious.
Coffee today is almost at 50-year highs, right? What's driving its prices up globally?
This is truly the first time we are seeing climate change being, having a very clear effect.
What it takes in terms of costs and elements to actually make a cup of coffee. Do you have any tips for our listeners about how they could maximize on every spoon of coffee?
Each person has, their own ways of bringing the magic to their cup.
Every morning, coffee isn't just a drink. It's a lifeline. It's what kicks us awake. It's probably the only reason we forgive that blaring alarm that jolts us awake. Some of us need it in a steel tumbler as a frothy filter caapi. Some in a paper cup, perhaps with our name spelled wrong. Either way, coffee isn't just a habit. It's about survival. But this year, global prices are at 50-year highs. In India, costs are shooting up too. Even those old South Indian brands, the ones that always fit neatly into middle-class budgets, are raising prices. Which means our ordinary daily cup of coffee may not be ordinary anymore. To help us make sense of all this, I'm joined by Divya Jaishankar. This IIM Bangalore grad is a management consultant turned coffeepreneur and a master roaster who runs her own café in Chennai. Basically, she's the best person I know to answer this question we're all secretly worrying about. What's happening to our coffee? Divya, welcome to In Focus.
Thank you, Anu. Lovely to be here.
I'll start with a basic question, which is how did you move from, being a management consultant to being a master roaster, somebody who's engaged and so involved with coffee? What really drew you to this space and how different were the times when you started?
Yeah. For me, it was a very personal lever that made me get into coffee roasting and sourcing when I was living in New York. And I was looking for the perfect cup of South Indian coffee. And that's when I realized that it's a product which goes through a lot of hops before it gets to your cup. And what we know as the right powder for South Indian filter coffee is very different from what you get in other parts of the world. So if I put in, let's say, an Ethiopian coffee into our South Indian filter, it tastes very different. So for me, that was it was a very interesting challenge to be abroad and try to find the right blend and the right roast to get to the perfect cup of South Indian coffee, which for me was the smell of home. And that's how I got into it. And since then it's just been a wonderful journey figuring out coffee as both a beverage and a crop. With so many of its added complications, its beauty, its challenges, and just at the end of the day, you're just at the mercy of nature and at the mercy of all the great things that a really good cup of coffee can do. So that's what drew me to it.
So I start my morning as I did this morning, putting my filter coffee, putting the powder, smelling the coffee as the hot water, I think you've taught me that before. There are people having coffee on the roadsides and cafes. What's the hidden story of coffee as we know it now and today that you as a roaster are seeing that remains hidden from us?
One of the nicest things that I keep talking to my team about, and we also do a lot of events in the cafe, is what we see is the final powder before we brew it and it comes to our cup. That's a very small hop. We make the decoction, it then becomes a cup of coffee, which is consumed in a few minutes. Otherwise, it's a year-long process. And every day I'm reminded, in these days actually, at the end of March, the beginning of April, there's some light bulb that goes on in my head because that's when the showers are supposed to be hitting, the first rain showers are supposed to be hitting all the coffee estates after they finish their harvest, and that's the blooming shower.
And this is in South India you're talking about?
This is in South India, correct. So that's the signal for the plants that it's time for the next cycle, next season's flowers to come through, and then those become the fruits, the cherries, and so forth. For me, I'm just in awe that I'm part of such a long value chain, right from the fruit from which the raw coffee bean comes. And I'm glad to be a part of converting that into roasted coffee, which then goes on to other people's cups, including my own. For me, I see all of that. So it's a long thing, and every year is different. Every year is different in its own challenges and its own beauty. And every time that I talk to people, we do sessions about coffee or about tasting. I always try to convey this sense that even though we're all part of the same country, very close to each other geographically, life on a farm in a coffee estate is very, very different from life for us. So
Right.
if we can get the understanding of that, then we understand that the coffee that we drink is so much more precious.
And when you say it's a year-long process, you're talking about the harvesting of the beans.
Yes, the harvesting, then the whole concept of flowering, the fruits. If you probably go in August to September now, you will see these green cherries. So they're not ripe. They start ripening around November, December, which is when the early part of the harvest starts. And the best coffees come from the ripest fruits. So what the estates have to be doing year-long processing to ensure that the cherries are ripening at the right time. They shouldn't be overripe. They should harvest them at the right time. And even after harvesting, there is a whole amount of processing that goes on in getting the bean out of the fruit, resting the bean, and then passing it on to the roaster, who is me. And then I begin my processing for that
Right.
particular batch. So it's definitely a year-long process, and there's very little rest for coffee.
Yeah. And this you're talking about both the varieties of coffee that are grown in India.
Yes,
right?
both Arabica and Robusta. And there are a few more native varietals that are coming to a lot more prominence. The Liberica and Excelsa, they're part of the same family. So all of them, every coffee plant goes through this.
Now, there's something else that's been going on. We are talking about just coffee as, people who love drinking coffee. But coffee is just not a beverage, right? It's politics, it's trade, it's, the market, demand, supply. Coffee today is almost at 50-year highs, right? What's driving its prices up globally?
Two main things. One is, of course, climate change. I think we're seeing the effects of this across every agricultural product. Cocoa recently went through its same kind of a price rise as coffee. The second thing being that,
And when you say climate change, can you be specific about like
course.
what's been happening recently that's
course, yeah.
pushing up the prices?
Sure. So there have been unpredictable rains, drought level conditions in both Brazil and Vietnam. Both of these are very, very large producers of coffee.
Yeah, Brazil, I think, produces 40%
Yes,
of the world's
it's
coffee.
the largest producer, and Vietnam also is, I think, the fifth or sixth in terms of volume that they produce. So when both of these are being hit by supply inconsistencies, then the market reacts. Combined, they're a very large percentage of coffee production in the world. It ends up going through it has ended up going through its cycles, reacting to the news that supply from both these places will be inconsistent, not just in this season, but probably maybe for a few seasons to come. That always gets traders and the entire coffee market into a little bit of a, difficult situation, and so that is one part of the price rise.
So that's basically curtailed the harvest, and curtailed the
Correct.
supply
Correct.
into the market.
Correct, yes. And there are also fears for what this will do in the future, which is also a very big part of coffee trade or
How
any
is that?
commodity
How is
trade.
that?
With such a large effect of unpredictable rains, droughts, all of that, we don't know what this means for the future. The entire cycle of coffee is based on the fact that we are roughly able to predict what will happen, not just in this season, but let's say one season down, 2 seasons down. We live with that kind of, there is always going to be 10 to 20% uncertainty, but this level of uncertainty is a little scary. This is truly the first time we are seeing climate change being, having a very clear effect. What does that mean for the future? What do each individual estate at their level, what do they have to do in order to counter it? Is it possible to counter it? What are the kind of measures? What are the kind of different processes? How do we conserve water? How do we use it more wisely? So how do we, basically the question is how do we bake in uncertainty and unpredictability into our daily processes, which is, difficult to do immediately for such a long product, right?
And
Like
I think
said,
it's also coming at a time when global demand is searching for it,
That
right?
is the second part of, yes,
Yeah,
the
like, I mean, I
price
think I
rise,
was
yeah.
reading about Luckin coffee in
Right,
China and
right.
how this tea
Yes,
drinking
yes,
country is actually
exactly,
coming up with
exactly.
businesses that are,
Absolutely,
giving
absolutely.
Starbucks a run for its money.
Correct. And China has become a very big consumer, as has the north of India, which is traditionally a small part of India, has been regular in its coffee drinking. And so when you combine these two very large populations taking to coffee in a very regular way, unlike before, that demand also plays a very big role. So we've seen two things. One is supply it is inconsistent and unpredictable. We're also seeing demand steadily rising. The demand is not going to lessen. Right? So we're seeing that steadily rising. So people are basically just scrambling about to figure out how. Like any business will have a 1 year, 2 year, 5 year plan. So looking at that plan, how are we going to satisfy this demand with inconsistent supply?
Right.
So these are the two things, the climate change and the sudden rise in demand. Steady, but suddenly when we look back, it's a very large rise in demand.
Yeah.
How do we, these are the two things which have contributed to price rise.
And United States is a big consumer of coffee.
Yeah.
And now, of course, with Donald Trump being the
Yes,
president
yeah.
and him actually issuing almost 50% tariffs on
Tariffs.
Brazil,
Right.
that's also contributed to the inflation in America.
Correct,
Right?
yes.
Now, in India, the situation is slightly different. I mean, we have seen unseasonal rain, I understand from you. What's going on in India in terms of, why the prices are rising in India? Because we have a kind of possibly a different taste profile as consumers.
Correct.
We are not being affected by the tariffs, in terms of higher cost. And I understand from you that importing coffee from countries like Brazil and Vietnam already involves high tariff levels in India.
Correct.
In terms of 100% tariffs. I mean, that's been on for many, many years. So what is, to kind of simplify it, what's really causing this inflation for coffee prices in India?
The commercial coffee prices are all, they follow global prices. So when the global prices rise, Indian commercial coffee prices also rise. That's just the way that the market works. It just makes life easier for everybody else.
Right.
So those prices have risen. And specialty coffee, which is what I deal with, which is, we can also call it premium coffee, but by definition, specialty coffee is coffee that is traceable to a single estate, in fact, to even a parcel of land within the estate, as well as it has very, very few defects. It's processed with utmost care. So this coffee is generally a few percentage points or per kg, some amount of rupees higher than your commercial coffee. So the moment commercial coffee prices rise, specialty coffee prices will also rise. And what has also been happening in India is, again, the amount by which an estate is able to increase its production is obviously limited. It happens very, very slowly, and even if you plant new crops, coffee crops, they're going to take about 5 to 7 years to get to commercial yield.
Oh, wow.
So all estates talk about planting always. It's obviously a part of their cycle. But it'll take a lot of time to catch up with the kind of supply that is required to satisfy demand.
Right.
And currently demand has gone through quite an increase. Lot of new roasters. Every city has quite a few roasters.
You were
Each
talking
of
about
them-
even the venture capital money coming in
Correct,
a lot.
absolutely. There is a lot of interest in coffee because it's one of those things which is very consumer facing. It's, so you see so many cafes being built
Yeah.
in a city like Chennai, and it's across the country. In cities which don't typically drink coffee, also in the north, like Surat, Nagpur, Ahmedabad.
The smaller towns, huh?
The smaller towns, absolutely. And you also see a lot of the tier 2, tier 3 cities catching up because it's become the thing to open a cafe and go sit in a cafe. What probably 20 years back or 15 years back was coffee day for us. It's becoming a thing where you want to go to a new place, interact with the ambience, see what are the new coffees that they have. And so it's become very fun and interesting for the new consumer, whether you've drunk coffee before regularly or you're new to it.
Right.
So there's a lot of interest. There is definitely a lot of investment potential, a lot of people who are investing in this space. So even from that perspective, demand has really gone really high.
I think it's interesting you're talking about the small town cafes actually kind of growing because with post-COVID, and this whole culture of work from home or, working virtually, I do know, for instance, of people who have moved to their native
Correct.
village
Yeah.
or town because it is more affordable for them to buy a home over there rather than be in the city with this option
Right.
of working virtually. And in that case, the cafes
Absolutely.
provide
Correct.
possibly a great ambience to sit and
Correct.
do your work.
Absolutely. I think cafes have become this ideal third space that we're looking at, which is neither home nor work. And especially now with a lot of focus on remote work and work from home, cafes provide the ideal third space where people can interact. They get to work at the same time. They get to see other people outside of the small circle that they probably have at home. So yeah, I think that has definitely fueled the cafe space in the country and will continue to do so. I think now everybody is just interested in going to a new cafe and seeing what their city has to offer, or even a new city. That's the way many people interact with when they travel.
Yeah, I mean, I have teenagers at home,
Right.
and I think when they socialize, they're always telling me they've been to this cafe and this is a
Correct.
new one that's opened.
Correct,
So it's definitely part of their social life to do
Absolutely.
it
Absolutely.
if
We
they don't
see-
choose to be drinking
Correct.
alcohol or something.
Exactly. So we see a lot of, especially on the weekends, we see a lot of high school kids and college kids come and spend a lot of time at the cafe. And like you say, for them, it's a very nice experience. At especially for the high school kids, it's playing at adulthood, so they really enjoy
Yeah,
it.
but it's obviously costing me a
It
lot
is.
more to
It
pay
is,
and
it
take care
is.
of their tabs. What do these soaring prices actually remind us about climate change? And are the prices, I mean, these are prices we've seen in 1977,
Right, right.
and I think post 1977, we saw this big growth in, maybe plantations and interest in investing in coffee and so on and so forth.
Right.
You spoke about cacao earlier, and I was reading about how there is a move to getting synthetic cacao, for instance, or, using cacao butter to kind of generate that kind of flavor profiles. What does climate change mean for beverage drinkers like us? And is the ordinary cup of coffee not any longer? Is it no longer going to be ordinary?
It's a question that I guess we'll all answer in our own ways and over time. Um, it just means that that cup of coffee has definitely become more precious. I think, especially for coffee, like you said, there are alternatives that we will be looking at. We will be looking at probably chicory as an alternative, which has always been around. We'll
Can you tell
also
us a little bit about what chicory is? It's obviously something that's very commonly mixed
Correct,
with
yeah.
in South
South
Indian,
Indian filter,
in
for
South
sure.
India, actually, right?
Chicory is a plant, it's a root, and it's similar, it has some similar, when it's roasted, has some similar characteristics to coffee in terms of something which is similar to the bitterness, as well as some level of acidity. So
Does it also thicken the coffee a little
it
bit?
does. It does. It has a higher. It is more fatty than coffee, so it retains. It sits with the water a little more, and so the amount of extraction is higher compared to coffee itself. And it's something that came about during one of the wars. I think the World War II. As a very viable alternative to coffee for soldiers on the front line, and from there it kind of became a part of any kind of measure to reduce the price of coffee.
Oh, wow. So this was something that soldiers in the front line,
Yeah,
if,
yeah.
given that there would be
Yeah,
scarce rations,
correct.
they would mix it. Oh,
Correct.
interesting.
Yeah. So it was close enough to coffee. It doesn't have caffeine, but it's close enough in taste that at least it reminds them of a cup of coffee. So it's found its way into some vernaculars. One is, of course, our South Indian filter coffee. Another one is the New Orleans coffee. They use it. They add a little bit of chicory to their coffee as well, and they typically drink it iced. So it's a cold brew over there. Same thing, it increases the yield, it increases the richness of that coffee because it's more fatty. So we may see alternatives like that. But definitely, I think one thing we can agree is that we'll all be more careful about the way we consume coffee, the amount of coffee we consume. And that's the first thing that any significant price rise does. It makes us reevaluate how much we are currently using and how do we want to be with it going forward. That being said, I believe in about a few months or a year from now, we'll all know how much we'll be back to some level of routine with respect to coffee, and the prices also hopefully should rationalize by then. This has been a significant jump. It's jumped actually, for somebody like me, it's jumped about twice or even thrice in certain specific cases. And it probably cannot stay at those levels. So we'll see.
That's huge. I mean,
It's a
doubling.
very high.
Can you tell me a
increase.
little bit about what it takes in terms of costs and elements to actually make a cup of coffee? I mean, how much does the cost of coffee actually contribute to the cup?
Typically, we take about, for calculation purposes, between 15 and 20 grams of coffee per cup. And the rates at which a premium kilo of coffee is selling right now is around 2,000. So we're looking at about 40, sometimes 2,500. So 40 to 50 rupees of just the coffee powder per cup. And then if you're making a cappuccino or a filter, it's going to be, let's say, 100 ml of milk, 100 to 150 maximum. And at today's rates, that's going to be maximum 10 rupees. So the coffee is very a significant portion today versus, let's say, 2 years back when prices used to be around 1,200 to 1,300 per kg. So we've seen a significant increase in that.
So the margins of many cafes are likely to be affected, or do you think it's going to be given the kind of amount that actually goes into it?
No, I think the margins are affected for sure. We've also seen a lot of, it's taken us a little bit of time for us to convince several of our partners that we sell to, the cafes and restaurants we sell to, that this is, this is what you kind of pay for quality. 99% of them have accepted. Some of them have, probably found alternatives. But that being said, there is this correlation obviously between quality and price, which this year is probably going to be hurting people a fair bit. It's
I think
hurting.
You'd also mentioned how it subsidizes some of the freebies that you offer them.
Correct,
right? Like
correct,
the sugar
absolutely.
packet, the tissues,
Absolutely,
the stirrer, the
and
takeaway
even if
cup.
you're sitting in and drinking a cup of coffee, the ambience,
Water.
the Wi-Fi, the water, use of the washroom, use of the amenities of the place, the music and the AC, all of that. There are a lot of hidden costs in a cup of coffee, which don't necessarily, which are not easy to understand as a consumer who's just there to drink the cup of coffee. So while the margins, I guess, they seem quite high, at the end of the day, it all works out. So.
Do you think like replacements for coffee? I was reading about date seeds being roasted, for instance, and made into coffee. I had somebody I had visited offered me caffeine-free coffee. I like my coffee properly with the sugar and the decoction and the milk. So I refused the offer of having alternative coffee. But do you think these kind of alternatives have a chance to survive? I mean, do you think there could be a market for it?
They may be. I think it ends up becoming a niche product, and if they have health benefits and if they're able to give you the feeling of drinking coffee, I'm sure that there'll be a small market for it. But at the end of the day, like cacao, I think coffee has a very specific flavor profile. The aroma triggers certain associations in our brain that are very hard to get out of. I think if you're drinking 2 cups of coffee a day, it's like you have an alarm in your head. It's very hard to get out of that. So I think coffee is one of those things that it's just so emotional. Once you are a coffee drinker regularly, it's very hard to get the emotion out of it. And so
it's true, because even at work, I think a couple of our colleagues, when I first joined the Hindu, one of the discussions was about where you get the best coffee in the office, which is in the canteen or in the passageway where coffee is served at coffee time,
Yeah, absolutely. I think it also brings together people because everybody has opinions, and because it's food, it's so subjective. So what you feel might be a great cup of coffee might not be somebody else's. What you feel might be a great cup of coffee may also change according to the time of day or what you are craving at that point in time. It is so subjective, which is one of the reasons why I absolutely love working with coffee. And another reason why I believe it'll be hard to completely substitute. It will continue to be a very big part of life. It's just that the way we interact with it, the amount that we consume it may change. But I mean, considering the amount of effort that goes in a global scale, the amount of work that's going in, the constant research that's happening, both in India with the coffee board, outside, a lot of larger producers, roasters coming together. I'm sure that, there will be a lot of efforts to ensure that coffee remains accessible, approachable, and a part of everyday life.
Yeah. And if I were to look at what is going to help me maximize the most out of every spoon of coffee powder that I put in, is it going to be the South Indian filter, or I know there are different ways of actually brewing coffee.
Right.
If I've already started doubling up.
Right.
Doubling up the pour on my South Indian filter, trying to get two goes at it. Do you have any tips for our listeners about how they could maximize on every spoon of coffee, or would you say it's
Yeah.
just not allowed?
No, there's no such thing as not allowed. That's one thing that I've realized after so many years in this. I think each person has, their own ways of bringing the magic to their cup. I would just say, just be a lot more careful with the size of the pack that you're buying. If you're traveling, don't buy the 500 grams or the 1 kg. Buy the 250 grams. Store it in the freezer, generally storing the coffee in the freezer in an airtight container or something in which, the freezing air doesn't get into the coffee bean. Makes it stay for longer. And if you're brewing the coffee, like you say, like a South Indian filter, honestly, is one of the best ways to brew it. You can store the decoction in the fridge for 2-3 days. You can even freeze it in your ice cubicle, the ice cube tray. You can freeze it and reuse it later. So all of these are ways in which, like you say, I think the magic is between that, are you using 10 grams or 15 grams? And sometimes we don't drink the whole cup of coffee. We drink 3/4 or half. So save the other part of the decoction. And I think prices being this high, everybody's being very careful about every last bean.
Yes.
So whatever you can do to maximize freshness is always a great thing.
Yeah. I mean, we were chatting about how even legacy brands in India, these are guys who are so loyal to their market of middle class consumers who are very price sensitive.
Correct.
And you told me that they are also raising prices. Tell me a little bit about that.
Definitely. I think we're in that phase of the coffee consumption story in India where the price rise is here to stay. It's not going to be 2x, 3x, but it is a price rise. And I think there is increased sensitivity to the fact that there are a whole new class of consumers who are here to stay. And demand is steadily increasing and will not decrease. So a lot of legacy brands, South Indian filter brands, both in Bangalore and in Chennai, are very, very careful, like you've mentioned, and they have increased their prices little bit, right? For per kg, I think what used to be, and these are just numbers off the top of my head, but what used to probably be a direct-to-consumer price, a retail price of about 650 has become, in some cases 850, 900.
Yes.
And there are, the thing that they do is that they offer several blends. They offer several chicory blends. They offer different grades of coffee, even within pure coffee, so that it's easy to still kind of match the price that you probably have been paying all this while. But then there will be a slight difference in the taste and the quality. So there are always ways that you can, meet your budget is still while still having the kind of taste that you expect. But when these guys are increasing their prices, I think it means that the price rise is here to stay.
Yeah.
So some price rise is here to stay, and which is of a magnitude higher than before. And what exactly that is going to be remains to be seen. But I think all of us in the trade have kind of adjusted to the fact that there is going to be at least a 50% increase in the,
I think there were times earlier this year or even in the past few years where, if there was a little bit of decoction remaining in the filter and it wasn't made that morning, we would probably dispose it because you want that fresh brew. I don't think that's happening anymore. I'm certainly putting it in the fridge, like you said.
Right.
And now that coffee is becoming so premium, it'll be great to learn what is the kind of vocabulary that we should actually have, just like wine connoisseurs have, wine lovers have their, dictionary of words. What are things that, now that all of us are going to become premium coffee drinkers, at least coffee drinkers at premium prices,
Right.
What are words that you would say will help you define or help you understand how to actually describe coffee? How do you describe coffee that you taste, and how do you differentiate them?
Right. There are about two or three parameters that we can define this across. In terms of the first thing is to define how you brew your coffee. So South Indian filter will be a dark, or we do a medium dark roast, which is just short of bitterness, but it has body. Body is a great word to know. It means the mouthfeel, or how heavy does it impact on your tongue, on your palate.
And when you're talking about the roast, you're talking about the roast of the seed, the coffee
Correct,
seed,
the
right?
coffee
That you're
seed,
roasting.
correct. As far as roast goes, there is a spectrum. There is a light roast, a medium roast, and a dark roast. Each of these express different parts of the coffee bean. And the dark roast expresses where, that's an expression where basically the sugars in the coffee have been completely caramelized. So you taste a lot of dark caramel, you taste some chocolate, you taste nuts, and you taste a little bit of sweetness. Dark caramel isn't fully sweet, but you can kind of feel it, right, on the back of your tongue.
Okay.
And if you take it too far, it becomes bitter, because dark caramel does get bitter when you burn it. The medium roast is a space where the coffee is very sweet. It's at that level of caramel before becoming too dark, and some level of acidity. Light roasts are more acidic in nature than anything else. They have some level of sweetness. The sugar is turned to caramel a little bit. So all coffees have acids, and the medium and darker roasts have allowed the acids to escape. But for a nation which is obsessed with acidity, all coffees are acidic.
Yeah.
And when roasted well, and when the coffee is basically sourced well, processed well, which is most specialty coffees are, the acidity can be really good. It need not be a bad term. It need not be lemony or mouth puckering. Typically, the acidity we see in the coffees we have is fruity. It tastes and smells like peach, any kind of stone fruit, mango, pineapple. It can be like banana. It can be floral.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
it can be like jasmine. It can be other white flowers. It can smell and taste like roses. So acidity manipulated well can be a very good ally.
And this you kind of taste when you have it black, I would assume,
you have
right?
it black, correct.
Not with the milk and the sugar.
Correct. But again, roasted carefully and with the right kind of milk, all of that, it's also possible to taste it in the Indian filter. You do taste it across the espresso and cappuccino, pretty much any concoction, but like you say, it comes out best in a black coffee. So that is one parameter. The other one is body, acidity, sweetness. These are the three ways in which I typically describe coffee. And if you taste enough coffees to kind of get that into your lexicon, that's always a great thing.
Yeah, I know my husband's been trying to get me into black coffee, and I hope I do, because I know that's supposed to be really good for your health.
Correct.
As
Yeah.
well. I know we don't have control over climate change, so that possibly is going to be a roulette that's going to be there in the coffee space. But I do hope that the trade wars end and that we see less of this kind of irritants around us. So yeah, I hope the cup gets cheaper, and hope it doesn't keep hitting sky high prices anymore, hopefully. But we'll see
For
if
sure.
that happens. Thank you so much for joining us.
Lovely talking to you, Anu. Thank you so much.
Same here.
Thank you.